This is a notice of understanding, which is a notice to agent, notice to principal, which served on Chief Superintendent Simon Nicholas, who's a Divisional Commander at Mansfield Police Station, Notts. Right, here we go. It is a requirement under English common law, which has primacy, that if an individual or individuals believe a possible crime has been committed, they have to report the same. To not report the crime is indeed another crime. Therefore, we, the undersigned injured parties, sue jurists, sovereign men and women under the common law of England, are competent to state that the following matters are true, correct and complete, presented in good faith and not intended to mislead. Whereas it is our understanding that 1. A long-range deception strategy to create a single federal European state with the erosion of each nation's sovereignty, currency and the powers to determine its own laws and affairs was finalised by the geopolitical centre of the Third Reich in Berlin 1942. This was done with the effect that should the Nazis lose the war militarily, they could continue their plans for a European dictatorship economically through corporatism and political subversion. The future shape of Europe is detailed in the seminars entitled Europäische Wirtschaftsgemeinschaft, which is a public document, World Catalogue number 31002821. It's translated in English as the European Economic Community. It is being presented as evidence. The chapter headings of this Nazi document were replicated almost verbatim in the 1992 Maastricht Treaty. Since the end of the war, divers treasonous persons, groups and movements with this ideology have conspired to build on this agenda, which has become known as the European Union. Number 3. The involvement of the United Kingdom in this agenda began in 1948 with the formation of the European movement. This was a state-funded Anglo-French pro-federal Europe lobbying body, posing as a non-governmental grassroots pressure group. A document outlining the detailed origins of this movement has been presented as evidence. The said movement is still publicly active today, lobbying for total European integration and a European Constitution. 5. The first move toward federal Europe did not involve Britain directly. It was the signing of the Treaty of Rome in 1957 by Germany, France, Italy, Belgium, Luxembourg and the Netherlands. 6. Meticulous research has uncovered a wealth of official archival documents from the period 1970 to 72 which shows the deceit perpetrated by the ruling elite at the time, and these documents have been released after the 30-year rule. 7. The common law applies to all sovereign living, breathing men and women and dictates that we are all born free to do what we choose for ourselves, provided we do not cause harm, injury or loss to another's life, liberty or property, or their rights to life, liberty or property. 8. England, within the United Kingdom of Great Britain, is a common law jurisdiction, and British Parliament has no lawful authority ever to breach, surrender, lend or transfer, even temporarily, sovereignty except when conquered in war. No one, neither monarch, nor Prime Minister, nor any prelate, politician, judge or public servant is above the common law of Great Britain that forms the British Constitution, Magna Carta 1215, the Declaration Bill of Rights 1688 and 89, the Coronation Oath Act 1689 and the Acts of Union, Secession and Settlement 1701 to 1707. 10. The Declaration of Rights 1688 is an unrebutted claim of right by the people and therefore beyond the reach of Parliament and still stands to this day. That declaration includes the clause, no foreign prince, person, prelate, state or potentiate hath or ought to have any jurisdiction, power, superiority, preeminence or authority ecclesiastical or spiritual within this realm. This is mirrored in the Bill of Rights 1689 which still stands as legislation. 11. Treason in statute law was defined by the Treason Act 1795 for the principal forms to include a. Compassing the death or serious injury of the sovereign or his or her spouse or eldest son. B. Levying war against the sovereign in his or her realm, which includes any insurrection against the authority of the sovereign or of the government that goes beyond riot or violent disorder. C. Giving aid or comfort to the sovereign's enemies in wartime. 12. Treason at common law is the offence of attempting to overthrow the government of a state to which the offender owes allegiance, or of betraying the state into the hands of a foreign power. 13. Sedition at common law means overt conduct, such as speech or an organisation that is deemed by the legal authority as tending towards insurrection against the established order. Sedition includes the subversion of a constitution and incitement of discontent or resistance to lawful authority. 14. The evidence presented in the shoehorned into the EU files shows that the ETH of government of 1972 was well aware that an essential loss of Britain's sovereignty would occur within 30 years with the passage of the European Communities Bill, and knew it would, in all likelihood, be rejected if brought to the people, which of course it was not. This in itself is an act of sedition of common law. 15. The passage of the European Communities Act 1972, establishing the principle that European law would always prevail over British law in the event of a clash, thereby overthrowing the supremacy of the British Parliament, was a criminal act of treason at common law by the ETH administration. 16. The signing of the Single European Act in 1986, reducing Britain's independent decision-making powers further by extending majority voting in certain areas of policy making, was a criminal act of treason at common law by the Thatcher administration. 17. The signing of the Maastricht Treaty in 1992, which is based on the original EEC Berlin document of 1942, surrendering sovereign powers of the Queen in Parliament to an unelected body in Europe, was a criminal act of treason at common law by the Major administration. 18. The signing of the Amsterdam Treaty in 1997 increased the European Union's powers for action at community level. This included further European integration in legislative, police, judicial, customs and security matters, and strengthened Europol. The signing of this treaty was a further act of treason at common law by the Blair administration. With the full knowledge of this treason, and to escape pending prosecution, the Blair government repealed the treason legislation in Section 36 of the Crime and Disorder Act 1998, abolishing the death penalty. This included the repealing of the Treason Act of 1795. However, the crime of treason at common law still stands as common law as primacy. A document outlining these changes to the state statute has been presented as evidence. 20. The signing of the Nice Treaty in 2001 and the EU Constitution in 2004 were acts of treason at common law by the Blair administration. In an attempt to further protect themselves against criminal prosecution, the Blair government removed the word sovereign from the oath of office of constable in the Police Reform Act 2002, Section 83, and also modified the legislation to enable non-British nationals to become officers, Section 82. These are acts of both sedition and treason at common law, and a document outlining these changes to the statute has been presented as evidence. 22. The signing of the Lisbon Treaty in 2008 surrendered further control of policy, including that related to immigration and borders. This was a further crime of treason at common law by the Brown administration. The Treasury Department of the European Community has never allowed an independent audit by professional accountants of their books in the last 14 years. 1 year of non-publication is a criminal offence. In fact, its financial accounts have been disapproved by the EU's own Court of Auditors for the past 14 years running. This crime has already been reported to the UK Serious Fraud Office by former MEP Ashley Moat. They are in possession of the evidence and have confirmed to him that the remittance of British taxpayer funds into the hands of this criminal enterprise is of course a criminal offence. A signed letter written to former Constable of Thames Valley Police Albert Burgess from Leolyn Price QC on the subject of the treason evidence states that the case Burgess puts forward is arguable and does merit serious consideration and investigation. And to the best of our knowledge, this letter is authentic and a copy has been presented as evidence. 25. The 6 EU treaties since 1972 are unlawful and should be struck completely from the statute books. Therefore, be it known to you, and that's to whom we've served this notice on, that in accordance with your oath of attestation to Her Majesty the Queen, it is your sworn duty to investigate and bring to justice in an acceptable and timely manner the perpetrators of these crimes against us. We consider these the greatest crimes perpetrated against this country and its people in 1,000 years. Those responsible must be brought before a properly convened court de jure and tried by the people under the common law of this land. And we will now affirm that all of the foregoing is true and correct, and that we are all of lawful age and competent to serve this notice, and have affixed our signatures to this document, with the explicit reservation that all our natural unalienable rights and specific common law rights not to be bound by any contract or obligation which we have not entered into knowingly, willingly, voluntarily and without misrepresentation, duress or coercion. And this has been signed the 8th day of May in the year of our Lord 2010.